Picture this, a Sunday service, thousands gathered, worship flowing, and then a young boy walks to the altar, not for prayer, not for salvation, but to tell the pastor something that would make most of us uncomfortable. My family is sleeping in our car. This happened at Pastor Keion Henderson's Lighthouse Church in Houston. And what happened next? That's why we're here today. Pastor Henderson didn't pause, didn't deflect, didn't say, "See me after service." He stopped everything and said, right there, in front of everyone, "You will not sleep in your car tonight. I will cover your housing for the entire week." That's it. That's the moment. But here's the thing. This moment is bigger than one pastor, one family, one church. This moment is a mirror, and when churches across America look into it, they need to ask themselves a question. What would we have done? Let me give you some numbers, because numbers don't lie. In January 2024, 771,480 people experienced homelessness in the United States. That's the highest number since data collection began in 2007. Think about that. The highest ever. But here's where it gets heartbreaking. Nearly 150,000 children experienced homelessness on a single night in 2024, a 33% increase over 2023. Children had the largest increase in homelessness of any age group. Let me say that again. 150,000 children, one night, no permanent home. And families? Homelessness among families with children increased 39%, the sharpest rise on record for this group. 39%. These aren't statistics. These are kids sitting in classrooms. These are mothers working 2 jobs. These are fathers who've lost everything. These are families sleeping in cars in church parking lots while we're inside singing about God's love. So when that boy walked up to Pastor Henderson's altar, he wasn't representing one family. He was representing 150,000 children. He was the face of America's fastest-growing homeless population. And Pastor Henderson saw him, really saw him. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the sanctuary. American churches have money, a lot of it. In 2024, Americans gave $592.50 billion to charities. Religion received $135.78 billion of that. That's billion with a B. The Lighthouse Church alone, Pastor Henderson's church, has grown to over 22,000 members across multiple campuses. It's one of the fastest growing churches in America. But here's what's interesting. Only 5% of Americans actually tithe, and 80% of Americans only give 2% of their income to churches. The average Christian gives 2.5% of their income. During the Great Depression, Christians gave 3.3%. We have less now, we're giving less now, and the need is higher now. So what are we doing with the resources we have? That's the real question. Let me paint 2 pictures for you. Picture 1. The Policy Church. There's a church, and I'm not naming names because this could be 1,000 churches, where a homeless family shows up asking for help. The process goes like this. Fill out a form. Provide documentation. Wait for the benevolence committee to meet. They meet monthly. Maybe you qualify for a one-time gas card. Maybe some food vouchers. Maybe. The process protects the church from being taken advantage of. It ensures good stewardship. It maintains boundaries. And while the committee deliberates, the family goes back to sleeping in their car. Picture 2. The Action Church. Pastor Henderson's moment. A child speaks. A pastor responds. Immediately. Publicly. You will not sleep in your car tonight. No committee. No paperwork. No, let me pray about it. Just action wrapped in compassion, wrapped in urgency. Now, I'm not saying every church needs to operate without systems. I'm not saying wisdom and discernment aren't important. But I am asking this. When did our systems become more important than the people we're called to serve? When did protecting the church become more important than reflecting Christ? Here's something fascinating. Religious people don't just give more, they give to secular causes too. 2/3 of people who worship at least twice a month give to secular causes, compared to less than half of non-attenders. And get this, 65% of weekly church attenders donated volunteer hours, money, or goods to the poor within the previous week. So religious people are generous. That's not the problem. The problem is infrastructure. The problem is speed. The problem is visibility. Pastor Henderson didn't just help that family privately. He did it publicly. He made it a teaching moment. He showed his entire congregation, 22,000 people, what immediate compassion looks like. And you know what happened? That mother came back. She gave her testimony. She talked about buying clothes for her kids, managing her mental health, using the resources wisely. The church didn't just give fish, they empowered fishing. Let's talk about how some churches are crushing it and how some are missing the mark entirely. The good. There are churches running food pantries that serve thousands monthly. Churches with homeless outreach teams. Churches that have turned their buildings into warming centers in winter and cooling centers in summer. Churches partnering with housing non-profits to create pathways out of homelessness. There are approximately 345,000 congregations across America, about 25 churches for every Starbucks. Imagine if even half of them had a rapid response fund for immediate needs. The challenging. But then there's the other side. And this is tough to talk about, but we have to. Some churches spend more on fog machines and lighting than on their benevolence budget. Some churches have multi-million-dollar facilities but cap their Help the Poor fund at $500 a month. Some churches preach about the Good Samaritan every year but require 3 forms of ID before they'll help someone in crisis. And then, and this is real, there are pastors who actively discourage giving to the poor. Earlier this year, Pastor Henderson himself got caught up in controversy when a sermon clip went viral, where he seemed to suggest that giving to the poor doesn't bring the same blessing as tithing to the church. His church clarified the context. He wasn't saying don't help the poor. He was saying don't substitute helping individuals for supporting the church's mission. But the clip revealed something. There's tension in church culture about where money should flow. Some churches see helping the homeless as a distraction from real ministry. Some see it as enabling. Some see it as social work, not spiritual work. But that boy who walked to the altar? He wasn't looking for a theology lesson. He was looking for a bed. Let me break down what happened at Lighthouse Church and why it matters. 1. Immediate response. Pastor Henderson didn't say, "Let's talk after service." He stopped the service. That signal is powerful. You matter more than our program. 2. Dignity over charity. He didn't just hand the mom money. He asked about her work situation. He offered to help find employment. He saw her as a person with capacity, not just need. 3. Community witness. By handling it publicly, he taught his congregation. He modeled urgency. He normalized helping. He made compassion part of the church's DNA. 4. Holistic support, housing for the weak. Help with employment. Recognition of the mother's good parenting despite circumstances. This wasn't a handout, it was a hand up with wraparound thinking. 5. no shame. The mother felt comfortable enough to let her child approach the altar. That speaks to a culture where vulnerability is safe, where asking for help isn't humiliating. Here's something every church needs to know. Veteran homelessness declined by 8% in 2024, continuing a 55% reduction since 2009. Veterans are the only population group where homelessness is actually decreasing. Why? Because there's targeted funding. Because there are specific programs like HUD-V, ASH, and SSVF. Because the government decided this was unacceptable and put resources behind that conviction. Churches, listen to this. What gets focused attention and dedicated resources gets solved. If veteran homelessness can drop 55% in 15 years with focused effort, what could happen to family homelessness if churches took the same approach? What if every megachurch in America, there are about 1,600 of them, adopted just 5 homeless families? That's 8,000 families housed immediately. What if every church with $1 million budget allocated just 10% to a rapid response homeless fund? That's tens of millions of dollars deployed where it's needed most. The resources exist. The question is priority. So what can your church learn from Pastor Henderson's moment? What can churches across America take from this? Lesson 1. Build a rapid response fund. Don't wait for committees. Have pre-approved money that pastors or designated leaders can deploy immediately for emergency needs. $500 to $1,000 can change someone's week. $5,000 can change their trajectory. Lesson 2. Train your congregation. Teach your people that compassion isn't just the pastor's job. When someone in your church sees a need, they should know. We're the kind of church that acts, not the kind that refers you to a form. Lesson 3. Partner. Strategically. You don't have to do everything. Partner with shelters, housing nonprofits, job placement agencies. But be the first responder, the immediate help that buys time for long-term solutions. Lesson 4. Make it public. Sometimes not every act of service needs a spotlight, but strategic visibility teaches the congregation what kingdom priorities look like. It normalizes helping. It creates culture. Lesson 5. Think beyond transactions. Pastor Henderson didn't just house that family for a week. He asked about work. He praised the mother's parenting. He saw the whole picture. Help with dignity. Help with future vision. Lesson 6. Count the cost of inaction. People experiencing homelessness die nearly 30 years earlier than the average American, often from easily treatable illnesses. What does it cost your church to ignore this? What does it cost your community? What does it cost your witness? Let's get uncomfortable for a minute. Giving to religious organizations has declined from 70% of all donations in 1954 to just 27% in 2021. Donors increasingly see the church as one option among many. Why? Because they want to see impact. They want transparency. They want to know their money is doing tangible good. When a church spends $2 million on a building upgrade but has a $10,000 annual benevolence budget, that's a statement of values. When a church pays a pastor $200,000 but says they can't afford to help more than 2 families a month, that's a statement of priorities. I'm not against nice buildings. I'm not against paying pastors well. But I am against the imbalance that's become normalized in American church culture. A 2016 study calculated that religion annually contributes $1.2 trillion of socioeconomic value to the U.S. economy. Churches are economic powerhouses. The question isn't capability, it's willingness. I hear you. But what about enabling? What about people taking advantage? What about personal responsibility? Valid questions. Let me answer them. First, when a child approaches an altar to say his family is homeless, that's not someone gaming the system. That's desperation wearing a brave face. Second, yes, some people will take advantage. So what? Jesus fed 5,000 people, and some of them probably just wanted free food and didn't care about the sermon. He fed them anyway. Third, the fear of being taken advantage of has paralyzed more churches than actual abuse ever has. We've built walls so high to protect ourselves from the 2% who might misuse help that we're missing the 98% who desperately need it. And here's the thing about enabling. You know what actually enables poverty? Keeping people in crisis mode. No stability means no job. No job means no housing. No housing means no stability. It's a cycle. When Pastor Henderson gave that family a week of housing and help finding work, he wasn't enabling homelessness. He was disrupting it. Let me close with a contrast. There are churches where the sermon is, God will bless you if you tithe to this church. And there are churches where the sermon is, let's be a blessing to this community. One produces consumers. The other produces disciples. One measures success by attendance. The other by impact. One asks, what can you do for this church? The other asks, what can this church do for you and through you? Pastor Henderson's moment wasn't planned. It wasn't programmed. It was instinct shaped by values. And it went viral not because it was extraordinary, but because it was rare. Think about that. A pastor immediately helping a homeless family went viral because it's rare. That should bother us. So here's my challenge to every church leader, every board member, every congregation. What would you have done if that boy walked to your altar? Would you have had a process? Or would you have had compassion? Would you have had policy? Or would you have had power to act? Would you have said, let's schedule a meeting? Or would you have said, you will not sleep in your car tonight? Because 150,000 children are experiencing homelessness right now. And they're not numbers on a government report. They're kids in your city, in your neighborhood, maybe in your church parking lot. They're waiting for churches to decide, are we going to be the people who sing about God's love, or are we going to be the people who show it? Pastor Keion Henderson chose to show it. His church had the resources and he deployed them immediately. No committee, no red tape, just compassion in real time. That's not impossible for other churches. That's not even difficult. It's a choice, and right now, tens of thousands of families are waiting for churches across America to make that choice. The viral video of Pastor Henderson helping that homeless family has been viewed millions of times. People comment, "This is what church should be. This restored my faith." More pastors need to be like this. But here's what I want you to hear. You don't need to be a mega church to do this. You don't need 22,000 members. You don't need multiple campuses. You just need to care more about people than processes. You need to value urgency over bureaucracy. You need to remember that faith without works is dead, and works without speed often arrives too late. That boy didn't walk to the altar asking for a blessing. He walked up asking for a bed. And Pastor Henderson gave him one. What will your church give?